Persona 5 Royal! Persona 5 Royal has been out for a couple of months now, and I haven't seen a lot of discussion surrounding it. Anybody who knows me can tell you how much I love Persona 5. Persona 5 being the critically acclaimed 5th entry of the long-running Shin Megami Tensei spin-off. Persona 5 exploded in popularity after its release in late 2016, early 2017, stealing the hearts of fans and newcomers alike, and garnering numerous accolades. RPG of the Year, among the best games of the decade, and going so far as to have Joker appear as a character in Smash. So it's only natural for Persona 5 to receive an updated predecessor. And this new game is such a worthy successor, expanding and improving upon everything that Persona 5 managed to do. Except for you get the hell out of here. It's not a necessity to play, but the experience of the third semester truly kept my jaw glued to the floor for the full 20 hours of time I sank into this edition. And it's almost all thanks to the antagonist. Now, creating a simple antagonist in a video game is not the most difficult task, but creating a villain that the player character can sympathize with is no walk in the park. Most games tend to rely on comedy or sheer power to help us fall in love with a villain's charm, but every once in a while, you have that hidden gem where a character's actions are near impossible to hate. And Persona 5 Royal truly feels like this character's writing was executed effortlessly. But pulling this off was no easy task. Building up the reveal to this character started from the very initial announcement of the game. Let me catch you up to speed real quick. December 2018, P5R gets announced. Everyone says it's Persona 5 Racing. I mean Persona 5 Ryuji. March 23rd, 2019, the anime ends its broadcast, and with it, a teaser featuring first-year redhead that resembles Persona 3 protagonist. I scream like a little bitch. Persona 5 Royal is officially announced. April 24th, Persona's annual live concert happens, and we get this trailer dropped. Persona 5 Royal has a cemented release date of October 31st, 2019. New area, new minigames, grappling hooks, sexy doctors, JoJo's references? Alright, I'll take it. Give me 2 copies. With this new game, it looked like we'd have a brand new semester leading to an interesting topic of discussion. In Persona 5, you have a definitive ending where you shoot God in the face and go to jail. So how are you going to subvert the expectations of fans, and who would be the main villain who's mightier than God? Will it be the new red-headed Kasumi? Will it truly be Goro Akechi? It turns out to be neither, but we do have to dig into Kasumi slightly to understand how they built up to this antagonistic reveal. Persona 5 leads you to believe that all sides point to Kasumi Yoshizawa, the poster child of the 2 new characters introduced. The other being Takuto Maruki. I mean, just look at the box art. She's front and center, she's on the back of the steelbook sleeve, and how can you blame Atlas for pushing her, because she's just so damn cute! But Kasumi is the focal point of the story from the very beginning, drawing attention away from the true antagonist of the game. From the second she's asked about the Phantom Thieves, she takes an entirely different approach to the motives surrounding the masked vigilantes of justice, and raises a question that most of us never thought of in the first game. Are the Phantom Thieves morally correct? This is where Persona excels at deceiving the unsuspecting player. Everything hints towards Kasumi being the antagonist, with Kasumi consistently constructively criticizing the central character's criminal context, Fujikawa. But when the keywords to Kasumi's alleged palace are not explicitly stated, there's unsure evidence leading it to be Yoshizawa. Putting 2 and 2 together though, it's fairly obvious that this laboratory aesthetic belongs to a man of science, and no other character fits the bill like Dr. Daddy. Seriously, the Persona community goes nuts over this guy. Takuto Maruki has such an interesting character development, as he completely takes a back seat to Kasumi's star of the show routine. They're both so contradictory, as Takuto and Kasumi both act as more cheerful characters that were severely lacking in the original game to help drive the morale of the characters. Immediately, Royal is trying to put its antagonist in a more positive light, which, let's be honest, we've seen these plenty of times in video games before. But with the inclusion of these positive characters, it drastically changes the tone of the game, focusing less on a dreary, hopeful vibe and focusing on the brighter lights that the characters exude. To start, Maruki is a confidant, acting as an aid in Joker's rehabilitation. However, Maruki's persona manifests itself in the reality of the world, and that makes all the difference here. As a recap, Maruki's persona is the ability to manipulate cognition, dubbed actualization. This was seen when rewriting Rumi's cognition to rid her of her traumatic experiences, and later Sumire when she imagines herself as Kasumi. Now, think of how frightening this could be during a real-world application, being able to manifest desires into another person. You could rewrite the cognition of a world leader to prevent all types of mass destruction. Or, on the other hand, recall the traumatic events that were once overcome by individuals now in power to create the distorted desires that rule the hearts of the antagonist of Persona. So what you're saying is I can turn Morgana into an actual cat. Alright, you can't do that, but this does give us a judge on Maruki's character and the compassion and grief that he feels. Maruki's grief causes him to pour himself into his studies and dedicate all of his energy into the research of cognitive science. Now this is contradictory to our normal perception of grief, When we imagine grief, we commonly relate it to a negative action, such as Anne's resentment for Shiho or the entire arc of Futaba. However, we often fail to remember that grief allows us to improve ourselves. Sometimes this is over a prolonged period of time, such as with the subject matter of Persona 3, and other times it can be immediate, such as the case with Maruki devoting himself to his research. But with all of this grief and Maruki's yearning for a time that once existed, I find one thing interesting that directly correlates to Joker. If Maruki has the ability to actualize and manipulate the cognitive realm, essentially rewriting one's memories and history, why wouldn't Maruki manifest his own desires into Joker? This leads me to the word that kept spinning through my head while exploring this character: altruism. Altruism is the act of doing good unto others that is unselfish in regard, and oftentimes causes physical harm to the users themselves. The common metaphor would be to take a bullet for this person, and altruism is the absolute textbook definition of Maruki as a character. So let's rewind for a sec. In Maruki's palace, while exploring the flashbacks, we see this interaction with Rumi whilst exploring her post-traumatic episodes, where he's first introduced to this power. The initial shock sets in the second Rumi's emotions are changed, where she comes to the actualization that she doesn't remember Maruki at all, yet has no painful memories regarding her past. Now, the typical reaction here would be for Maruki to try to convince Rumi of his credibility, but here's where the altruism comes in. He lies and says,
"She's passed away. That's why I won't be coming here anymore."
This immediate reaction, followed by his quick dismissal to reforge the bond after she asks for his contact information, proves that Taketo Maruki solely cares about the well-being and happiness of others, going so far as to endure his own suffering to make the lives of everyone around him more beneficial. And this leads me directly into one of the gimmicks of Maruki's palace. His palace is nothing groundbreaking in the sense of metaphorical design, merely reiterating his dedication to his research. However, we need to discuss the examination that takes place halfway through. The examination explores the foundation of Maruki's distorted, remember, distorted desires. His reality is one in which nobody has to feel any pain, which I'm sure you gathered through your playtime. But the one key moment took place in the third question, where Maruki poses what he would do if he were granted the exact same powers as Joker. And surprisingly, his answers mimic the actions that we the player have taken as Joker throughout the entire game. Which leads to another question. Is Joker's actions throughout the game truly justified? And that's the glory of Persona 5 Royal. The game has you put in the shoes of the opposition, rather than follow the perspective you've experienced for 80 hours so far. It explores and inhibits the natural desire to perceive the unknown, leaving the player with a long-lasting wonder of what is morally right and wrong. Maruki's actions are not wrong by any means, however flawed they may be, but it does coerce the player into making decisions they might have not recognized in their initial playthrough of Persona 5. But how does that lead to the question that I posed? Why would Maruki manifest his own desires into Joker? Well, he's already done that. The reality Joker sees alongside the Phantom Thieves is the one that Maruki has already created, one where Akechi gets to live out his days. And we see this in the fake ending in which Joker gets to live a happy life with his friends under the Sakura household. But Joker and Akechi deny this, which is where Maruki's tenacity comes in. Now, well, let's rewind again. You can see Maruki in the background as they were leaving the metaverse for the first time with Anne after Kamoshida's palace. With the relationship formed between Joker and Maruki, I feel it's safe to say that Maruki idolizes Joker's power that resembles his own, able to change the cognition of palace rulers and the general public. I don't think it's a stretch to say that Joker fills the shoes of Rumi, as this is the first deep personal connection that Maruki has formed since her accident, which based off of storyline events seem to be a few years prior. But whilst Maruki longs for the approval of Joker, the only other being with power similar to his, we have to talk about the Messiah Complex. And yeah, I knew all you psych majors knew this was coming. In short, the Messiah Complex is pretty self-explanatory. It's a state of mind in which the individual believes that they are destined to become the savior to an individual or the entire world. This is fairly common in patients with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, but doesn't necessarily mean it can't materialize elsewhere. Now, there are plenty of videos that you can find online to describe this, as I am not a psychologist by any means. But I do know how this correlates into Maruki's character, more specifically his persona, and I guess that means it's time for a history lesson! Maruki's original persona is Azathoth, otherwise referred to as the Blind Idiot God, commonly associated as a being of chaos based on the stories of Lovecraftian mythology. You see, normally this is the time that I'd make a joke or say something funny pertaining to the issue at hand, but I am so emotionally drained from this video that I'm just going to show you a picture of chaos. Azathoth is a primordial being, a god with no sense or sight according to its mythology. I believe the tentacles represent the controlling aspect of Azathoth's manifestation of the physical world, shaping it into what we know today as the false reality that Maruki has created. Azathoth, in the mythos, is a being completely unaware of its surroundings, hence the title of being the blind idiot god. But why am I telling you this? Well, Maruki represents the guiding light, meant to forge the path and bring wisdom to the primordial beast Azathoth. As a stark contrast, Azathoth evolves after Maruki's boss battle into Adam Kadmon, the original man according to Abrahamic mythology. Adam is the perfect prototype man created by God and represents the initial creationism. The Messiah complex is clear. By this, you fight Maruki right after you enter the Garden of Eden and ascend the metaphorical stairway to heaven. But Maruki's altruism still shines forth upon this final battle, not wanting to resort to violence, but willing to die in his passions until the very end, even confronting Joker with his final ultimatums, time and time again, pleading for this materialistic world free of worry and sin. And this begs the player to answer the ultimate question: would you allow an all-knowing entity to become God and give everyone happiness on Earth? Technically, this would be the true reality and you would never know, but then again, it's the distorted desires of one man who has lost everything. This is the man who's willing to put himself through pain and suffering through the entirety of eternity, so that the entire world, including the woman he can't seem to let go, can live in happiness. And this is even evident in his boss battle theme. Yes, a villain with a boss battle theme, pleading for the player to give into his perfect world. Maruki truly bridges the thought process of the player as a villain, antagonist, anti-hero, whatever you want to refer to him as in Persona 5 Royal. There's truly no evil or malice in Maruki, which serves as the catalyst to the player's philosophical thoughts. And this personification of altruism and intimate relationship with the player is executed so excellently. Yaldabaoth was an epic conclusion in Persona 5, but it didn't feel as intimate of an experience. It wasn't a poor boss or bad idea by any means. In fact, I think it stands great on its own, but it's easy to see the disconnect with a final boss that the player has no history with until the final segments of the game. The intimate experience brought to Persona 5 Royal is the icing on the cake to a wonderful thought-provoking game, challenging to view the world in a different perspective and leaving the player with a greater understanding of their own thoughts and how they shape not only themselves but others as well. I didn't expect this Yuri on Ice looking student counselor to leave such a hole in my heart and nearly crying a dozen times while playing through the game and making this video, but the intimacy I felt and connection throughout the whole of the story has still stuck with me through multiple revisits, nearly 6 months after release. Persona 5 Royal leaves you able to appreciate the darkness and bad times that we experience in our everyday lives. It proves that if we don't understand where our low points are, we truly won't be able to appreciate the highs. It proves that the end result and goal that we strive for doesn't hold a candle to the destination and failures that we experience along the way. That attaining our own goals in a materialistic manner full of attained knowledge and memories is worth more than any genie in a lamp or shooting star could ever grant us. If we have nothing to strive for and nothing to achieve, then how are we truly able to feel grateful for the gift of life that we are given? So I think it's finally time for me to seek my own counselor so that I can set my own issues straight.
Dr. Patrick there, a home counselor here. How can I help you today?
Yes, I wanted to set up an appointment for therapy.
Absolutely. What seems to be the problem?
Yes, how do I turn myself into an anime cat? You guys really thought I was gonna forget, didn't you?